Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Insightful Accountant webinar. Save time with nettTracker, Fixed Assets Made Easy, presented by Ash Beatson. My name is Emily Hedrick, and I will be your host for this webinar. If you have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A box, and we'll try to address them. Everyone that has registered will receive a follow-up email with the recording and handout later today. Today's speaker is Ash Beatson. He is the co-founder of Farscape Applications Limited, the company behind nettTracker. With 30 years of bookkeeping and accounting experience in various fields, efficiencies and problem solving have always been a high priority for Ash. The original concept of nettTracker is based on ideas that have been brewing over the last 6 years while training UK accountants to help them gain QuickBooks Online Core and Advanced certification. Essentially, nettTracker has been built by an expert QuickBooks Pro advisor for other QuickBooks Pro advisors. Thank you, Ash, for being here today. And when you're ready, you can get started.
Oh, thanks, Emily. Emily, thank you very much for having me. So what I'll do is I shall just share my screen. I'll bring my screen up into view and just go through a couple of slides first. So let me get that up in place. So hopefully you can see my first slide okay?
Yes, looks great.
Excellent, thanks, Emily. Yeah, just a very, very quick about me. I think Emily's already said that. So I'm the co-founder of nettTracker. I have sort of 30 years accounting experience. I'm part of the UK Trainer Writer Network for Intuit as well. So I've been helping Intuit train accountants and small businesses for the last 6 years on QuickBooks Online. So with nettTracker and today the sort of agenda for this afternoon, I just want to sort of quickly why do we actually monitor fixed assets in the first place? And then we'll look at creating a nettTracker company file and linking it to QuickBooks Online, sort of completely live, and work through the setup wizard and how we can import some assets through our spreadsheet and actually add brand new asset purchases directly to the fixed asset register. Then we'll look at running depreciation, how we can then delete and dispose of assets and the year-end process that we've got in nettTracker as well. So why do we monitor fixed assets? Well, really so that we can produce reports that reflect some accurate profitability, and it's not always about cash flow. So I do know that, sometimes if you are putting the depreciation through and you might want to have a full year go through because of the different sort of tax options that you have. You might sort of put 100% basic full depreciation. Sometimes is that always the best thing to do for your client, because you could be making the profit and loss look a lot less than you can. So yes, you can set up nettTracker to reflect what you're going to put on a tax return, but is it always the best thing to do? Because if you want to look at true profit and loss on a sort of financial accounting basis, those assets that we buy, yeah, they may cost us $30,000, $40,000 in the first year, but they could last us for 5 or 6 years. So really sticking all of that on the profit and loss in the first year is really not going to do any good to our profit and loss reports. And if we're trying to get a loan from the bank or trying to attract a new investor, if they're just looking at that sort of bottom line thinking, oh, that particular month looks terrible, it could just be one of those assets or the depreciation that's been put through in full. So if you're able to spread that cost over the length of the life of the asset, then you're going to get much more realistic financial reporting. So why should we use nettTracker? Well, you can save a lot of time when it comes to preparing the accounts at the end of the year. And if you need to run quarterly reports, you'll save time, and you'll save even more time if you need to run monthly reports. So, okay, without sort of further ado, I'll get myself into the live demo. So let me just, first of all, log in. So you'll have a login. I won't go through the process of creating an account, just like most others. So I've logged into my account. This is the file I'm logged in as an accountant. So in fact, if we could actually run a very quick poll, here, Emily. You know, are you actually, you know, an accountant slash bookkeeper, or maybe you actually work for the, you know, just your organisation? If you want to run that for us. So we'll just leave it up for a couple more seconds. I just want to close that one down now. Emily, I don't know how long it's been up. Have you got the results on that? Oh, so I can see the majority, yeah. So work for an accountancy firm, and you know, the rest don't. So yeah, close that down. That's great. Thank you for that, Emily. So if you are an accounting practice, then when you log in, you'll see all your clients in this list. Now, if you are just working for the one company in industry, you'll have exactly the same list, but you'll just have your one company at the top that you're interested in. So I want to actually create a brand new company and connect it to my QuickBooks file. Before I do that, let me just pop into my QuickBooks account that I've got set up here. So I've got one set up for Insightful Accountant. If I was just to run a quick balance sheet, there's not a lot on this file. I've literally put an opening balance in for my accumulated costs and my depreciation to date. So accumulated cost depreciation, so I've got assets worth $181,000. And this is the account that I want to link to start building my fixed asset register. So let's start by creating a brand new account. So at the top right-hand corner, I've got this option of an account, and I want to create a new company. So let me just go through this. I've got a subscription in place, which I'll select. We can connect to QuickBooks or Xero. I'll just take the QuickBooks. So this takes a second or two. I'm set up as an accountant with many clients, so I'll just select my accountancy firm and my client, just go next. So just like you would with any other app, if you're trying to connect, it's pretty straightforward. So it takes a couple of seconds. Again, I've brought through the company name, the currency that's in use. So nettTracker is multi-regional. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, what currency that you're working in, because we're only really interested in what the actual value is. So it could be anything really. Then what it's detected is the financial month starting point. So QuickBooks just says January, but in fact, that's correct, January 2020, but I want to actually start from January 19. I've not prepared the accounts for a couple of years. So important that I make sure the start month and date is correct here. So let me just go back a couple of years. And this way I'll be able to demonstrate the year end fully. So I'll run that from January to December 18. Just below that, we've got some automated features. So I won't go into them in huge amount of detail, just so we can get set up. And I've got some other settings. Important one here with the straight line version of depreciation. So there are different methods of straight line. So the in-year one would mean that regardless of when you actually buy the asset, it will write off a full year's worth of depreciation in that first year. So if you buy something in December, you would get a full year's worth of depreciation in that 1 month. Whereas if you use the by month, so you want to make sure it's spread evenly month by month, specifically on that acquisition date, you'd use the by month one. So I'll actually flick that to by month. Referencing on your journals, you've got some options there, and you've got an automatic write-off feature. So if you were using the reducing, your declining balance method, it never often fully writes off that asset. But if you choose to put in a value, let's say of $15, and when an asset reached that value or less in the final month of your year, it will just write it off fully. And if you want to use class tracking, you can do to match the classes you're using QuickBooks. So from there, I'm just going to create my company now. And this takes a few more seconds while it's bringing more data in from QuickBooks. So at this point, we've completed step 1 of our wizard of setting up our nettTracker file. And now we work through these 4 other options within the wizard. So the second one being our depreciation rules. So I'm just going to click next. So there are already some depreciation rules set up, straight line, reducing balance. If I wanted to create any additional rules, then I can do from within here. Now I know in the US and Canada, there are lots of other different types of depreciation methods. And at the moment, we're sort of working on sort of making those sort of like automatic. But you can actually still get the same result by using a combination of what is already in here. So any questions on those, and pop them through a little bit later. I don't need to add any further depreciation rules. I could have created as many as I want, but I'm just going to click next. Now it's here where I want to actually compile my asset groups. And again, I can add further asset groups later if I don't put them all on now. I've got 2 automatically. I can choose to change the name if I wish of computer equipment, motor vehicles. As it happens, I want to use those 2. And I also want to add a couple of other asset groups. So I'll just get those added in as well. So I want to put one in here for land, another for office equipment. So I've got 4 asset groups that I want to use within my fixed asset register. And with each asset group, I can add a default depreciation rule. So I'm going to choose, say 3 year. I'll just add some that are in place. Land doesn't want to depreciate at all, so I'll have no reduction on that one. I'll just have a 3 year. If I wanted to delete any of those, perhaps I only wanted 1 asset group, then there's a little dustbin lid icon. I could delete that as I work through. So they're my asset groups. I'll save those. Now that I've saved my asset groups that I want to set up, I need to link these to my chart of account categories that are in QuickBooks. So for some of my account categories, I can share with all of the different asset groups, apart from additions. And the reason for that is that if I buy something and I code it in QuickBooks to computer equipment additions, then it will come through to the appropriate one. So I can't share just one additions account in QuickBooks, because I won't know what asset group it needs to go to in nettTracker. And if we want to fully automate it, which we can do, then having those different additions categories, we need them. If I haven't actually set up those different accounts in my QuickBooks file, I can actually leave it with new asset account, and nettTracker will create those for me. So in this instance, I'm actually going to have for each of my new additions account and my depreciation in year for each asset group, I'm going to get nettTracker to create new ones for me. But I do have a depreciation profit loss account already set up, and I'll use the same one for every asset group as I am doing here, and just get those mapped across. So let me just, so that's my step 1. So my second stage is when I dispose of an asset, what account categories do I want the journals to create? Again, in this instance, I'm going to say, well, actually, we'll use some new asset categories. But I do have a gain or loss on the disposal of assets already set up in the profit and loss. So I'm just going to choose to select the one that's in place. So let me just pop that in. And I'll click next. And then the last section is when we run our financial year end, what we want to do is all of the movements in the year, so my asset purchases, my depreciation in the year, I want to create a journal which will then change my accumulated balances. I could have a different accumulated account for each of my asset groups, but as I have in my QuickBooks file, I've just got one that says accumulated cost and one that says accumulated depreciation. So in fact, I'm just going to use the same one here for each asset group, accumulated costs. add accumulated depreciation. So I've got that set up. So now I'm pretty much finished the majority of my settings. So I'll just click finish and save at this point. It's creating the new asset categories in QuickBooks Online, so the new chart of account codes that I need. Now I can go to my dashboard. So this is going to take me to the dashboard where I can see on here that I've got this external book value that says $181,000. That relates to the value that's on my balance sheet at the moment, 181,000. My asset register doesn't have any values because I haven't actually added any assets in there yet. So this is where, when I'm setting up my file, I actually want to bring in my assets from my previous financial year. So if I've got assets in a spreadsheet, and I'm sure many people do, in fact, we'll ask another little poll here, Emily, if you could, how are you currently monitoring your fixed assets? So are you using a spreadsheet or using other software, maybe not bothering at all at the moment? So if you could fire that one up for us, that would be great. Okay, we'll leave it up for a few seconds or so. And I'll let you close it off, Emily, when you're ready for the other results. So that'd be grand. So I can see, yeah, as I sort of expected, and I used to work in accounting practice, so no surprise there that the majority still use Excel to monitor your fixed assets. So thanks for that, Emily. If you could close that, would be great. So if you do have those assets in a spreadsheet, then what I can do from this point is I want to view my assets. I won't actually have anything in there, but I'll click View All. So these are my asset groups that I set up during that setup wizard, but with no assets attached to them. So at the top right-hand corner, what I can do, I can manually add an asset. If I only had a handful, maybe I'd do that. But I'm not one for manual data entry in any form. So what I'd much rather do is use this option to import. So if I do choose an import, there's actually a template which you can download. So it's a very simple Excel template. Gives you the instructions actually of what you need to do. And if I do actually bring it in to view a file that I've already completed. So let me just drag this. Apologies if the screen goes a little bit funny for a second. So there is my completed template, which just shows the asset group that I'm using, depreciation method, when the assets were purchased, the description of those assets, what the original cost was, and what the depreciation was, the accumulated depreciation to the last financial year end. So I've got all that information in there. We can also set a residual balance, but I don't want any residual balances on that particular asset register, so I'll just get rid of that. So there's my completed file. So once I've got that template ready, then I can upload it. So I'll just choose my file, choose to browse for the file that I need. So let me just come into, there we go, that's the one. So I've got my asset templates ready to be imported. I've got some warnings here, which I should be able to, oh, I know why, because I've put these in the current year. So bear with me a second. I changed my template. So let me just return to the upload. I'm going to very quickly change those dates. So that's just gave me a warning there, because normally we don't import any assets with the current year, because we'll take current year assets from QuickBooks. So let me just quickly change those to the previous year. Apologies for that. There we go, that should fix it. So now I'll choose that file again, hopefully with those different dates in there. There we go. So I've brought through the dates from the previous financial year end, so to the end of December 2017. I'm starting this file from January 18. All of the balances look fine. So what I'll just choose to do now is complete that import. So once I do complete, I'll proceed with the import. So quickly from that spreadsheet, and even with my little hash there where I put the wrong dates in, because it's very quick to actually import those assets. They've all come through from the previous financial year. Now what I should find is if I come back to my dashboard, my asset register is now in line with my year end in QuickBooks, my balance sheet values in QuickBooks. So the next thing I'm going to do is now go into my QuickBooks file and actually put some new purchases in. So we're starting this asset register, or this new asset register, from January 18. So if I'm in my QuickBooks file, and if I was to create a purchase, so let me just go to put a new supplier bill on. So if I put something in here from 1st of July 2018, so I've got different accounts that nettTracker have set up, computer equipment additions in the year. So obviously you can change the name, but we can see that when it's got the star NT, that it's one that's been created by nettTracker. So in order for nettTracker to be able to monitor this fixed asset purchase, I need to make sure I allocate it to the right account. So let me just add that one in. And I'll just put 5,000. Computer, and in fact I'll just save that, create a copy, with the motor vehicle. So you can just see there's a couple of different assets that have come through. So 2 new asset purchases for 2018. So I'll just save and close. If I take a look back into my QuickBooks file, just do a little refresh here. What we should see now is that my balance sheet value is higher than what is in my asset register at the moment, because I've just added 2 new assets, which in total were 23,000. Now what I'll have from the dashboard as well are different warnings that will appear. I've got a couple that tells me that I need to view some transactions, so new asset purchases I need to review, and also that I should have processed the depreciation, because based on those dates, then we're in 2020, so I should have been doing the depreciation by now. So if I just go to view my transactions from this page, this takes me to the transactions area, very much like monitoring your transactions in QuickBooks, your banking transactions, if you like. I've got these different tabs where new assets are coming through for me to review. And once I've reviewed them and added them to the asset register, they'll become processed. And if for any reason there's a duplicate that's come through, or maybe something's been coded in error, then I can ignore the transaction and it will go into this ignored area. And what will also happen is that if I code a transaction and add it to my asset register, but maybe someone goes back into QuickBooks or Xero and they code it somewhere else. So it originally went into computer equipment. Someone's gone and changed it, put it to stationery. I should get this little flag appear that the transaction's been recategorized, and it should also get highlighted on my asset register too. So if I just come into pending, I can now create the asset and add it to my asset register from here. So let me just create the asset. So based upon most of the information that's already in QuickBooks, the date of acquisition, how much it was, the details, that's already there. I can't change the acquisition date, but I could change the information in the asset name if I wish to. There is a default depreciation rule in place for motor vehicles, so I'm just going to select that and just click OK, really, just to get it added. And I'll just do exactly the same with the other, which is just to create an asset from there. So just get the assets created, put onto the fixed asset register. Two have been processed. So it started off in pending, they're now processed. And although I've actually logged in to do that, I don't actually have to, because I could have in my initial setup say, well, when an asset comes through, just automatically put it onto the asset register. So there is a setting in place, and you can put a threshold. So only if a transaction is more than $2,000, if you like. So if it's more than that, then put it onto the asset register. If not, it would still appear, you know, for you to review, but it won't automatically add it. Now, if I come back to my dashboard, what I should see is my asset register has been updated, agrees back to the balance sheet. So that's always going to be my sort of little check there. If I come to view all, just to take a bit more of a look at the asset register, what we've got is brought forward assets. So what I brought through on my spreadsheet, then I've got my in-year, my current year purchases. If I dispose of anything, then I'm going to have values in the disposal column, brought forward depreciation that's going to be calculated in the year. If I dispose of an asset, again, it's going to make the adjustments in the disposal column, and I can see what my net book values are at the moment against my assets. On the far right, I've got options of looking at the asset in greater detail, which we'll take a look at in a little while. I can edit the asset as well, if necessary, options for disposing of an asset. And I can also delete an asset. So we can't delete an asset if it's in the previous financial year, because that will actually throw our accounts out. So if we've completed the accounts to, you know, a year end and everything's been agreed, we shouldn't be disrupting those year-end figures. So that's why we can't actually delete assets from the previous financial year. Not at the moment anyway, but I think we maybe bring that in, but there'll be a lot of confirmation steps, because I'm quite careful about changing any prior year values. So let's take a look now at actually running some depreciation. So what you'll find is from the dashboard, I can process the assets, and it's the same actually. If I click go, it will take me to this area. Very much, well, it's really like a depreciation forecast, if you like. So what I've got here is a forecast of the depreciation that's going to run through the year, where the assets have just recently been purchased. You can see that the asset purchases appear later. So if I choose to process the assets, and I can run this to, let's say, the 31st of October. So if I process my depreciation to the end of October, then what we'll have, all of those coloured areas which are in blue will go to green. That's indicating that the depreciation has been processed, and those journals should automatically appear in my QuickBooks file. Just before I take a look at QuickBooks, if I come back to my dashboard, these figures are going to change to reflect the depreciation that I put through. So great, my book value and my asset register both agree. That's always going to be my sort of check list, my reconciliation. If I look at my QuickBooks file, let's run a quick profit and loss. So if I run this for 2018, you can see that although I just did that in one button, it's put the journals in for every single month. So if I actually open up one of those journals, what we'll see there is basically a line for a couple of the different depreciation codes. I'll just close that down. Come back to my report summary. So if I bring myself back into nettTracker and come back to my asset register. So let's take a look at what happens if we actually want to dispose of an asset. So if I do have an asset at the top here, let's say this equipment that's on a lease, and I'm going to dispose of that asset. So I can just choose the option there to dispose. Now, when we dispose of an asset in nettTracker, it won't create sales invoices for the disposal. So if you do sell an asset, you'll need to actually create the sale in QuickBooks. This is really just like a note. So the date of the disposal, which could be in November. So I'll just run that to 30th of November. And I can put in a value. So this is really a memo note. So I'll just put 1,000 in there. You do have an option if you want to reverse the depreciation. So some businesses, depending upon the methods that they follow, they will reverse out depreciation in the current year for an asset that's disposed. Other businesses will leave the depreciation in place. So if you want to leave it in place, you just remove that tick and then I'll click OK on that. So what that will do is that will create some journals between my profit and loss and my balance sheet, taking the value out of the fixed asset register. So I can see that I've got disposal and a depreciation disposal there. If I look at my QuickBooks file, what I should see is there's a journal come through 30th of November, which reflects these adjustments, these disposal journals. So all of that's done for me. So if you do sell the asset, then you'll just need to make sure that sales invoice is really coded to the same account of your gains and losses. So you'll reflect the true gain or loss in your profit and loss account. So I'll come back to my nettTracker file and let's take a look back at the dashboard and we'll run through the year end. So again, my values are still in sync, which is exactly what we'd like. So let's continue processing the assets to the rest of the year. So I'll run that to 31st of December. And again, although we're logging in to do this, generally, you would just let nettTracker run the depreciation for you. So you could, in fact, just set nettTracker up and then never have to log into it until a year's time, or just when you want to sort of just review perhaps your monthly reports, just a little check. So now all the depreciation has been processed to the end of the year, we've got this end of year routine. So I can start my end of year. So if I click on start the end of year, I'll start my end of year process. So what it would do, it'll do some little checks in the background just to make sure I don't have any assets outstanding where I've not put the depreciation through. If I had any transactions maybe where I'd coded it as an asset, but I've not accepted it. So those asset purchases that have not gone on the fixed asset register, perhaps they should have done. And any assets which might be in a warning state. We shouldn't really have any, but if anything came through perhaps with a negative balance, and you shouldn't have one, it's just doing a double check on that. So all of the checklist has gone through, and that's all looks good. Before I complete the end of year, let's just take a look at what else is on this screen, where I can see that against each asset, I can see what the actual end of year net book value is. So I've got $2,000 odd against that. If I scroll down, have I got any assets with some low values? So I've got an asset there which has got $71 outstanding. I could take the view that in fact, well, no, I just want to write off the balance basically. So if I choose this edit, this little pencil, if I put in a positive value, 71.96, that should create further depreciation. So this is like an additional period 13, if you like. So now if I put 71.96, my net book value is going to be 0. And I could do the same for this one here. I want to put an extra 40.21 through. So I'm writing off the balance. I think it's not worth me carrying that asset forward any longer. If I wanted to change the depreciation rule in the next year, so I know that you've got some options of sort of the double declining and the 200%, if you like. So if, for example, an asset would normally be depreciated over 4 years, and you've worked that out as a percentage as 25% a year, but in the first year you've doubled that to 50%, then you could in year 1 allocate 50% depreciation. And then at the end of your financial year, you can think, well, actually, for the remaining years, I'm actually going to write that asset off, over a less number of years. So I could change the depreciation rule as I'm doing this review. Whatever's left, write it off over the remaining number of years, or change the percentage if I wished. So now what I'll do is I'll choose to complete the end of the year. It will now just do a little bit of a check, and it will also produce an additional journal for that extra depreciation. So I'll complete the year-end process. So it's putting the additional depreciation journals through, and it's putting my end of year balances adjustments through in QuickBooks. So let's take a look at my QuickBooks file. Run a balance sheet here. So what we've got now is my accumulated costs and depreciation. Everything is in the one place as of 2020. If I move this back to December 18. So as of December 18, what we had is our original balances, which was made of accumulated costs and accumulated depreciation. And if I actually run this from January 19, compare this to the previous period, then we can see that these figures, which were our in-year figures for 2018, as of the 1st of January, have now all been adjusted to my accumulated balances. So as soon as you've completed your end of year, a journal runs through and puts those figures into your accumulated pots for you. So whether you want a different accumulated account for each of your asset groups, or whether you just want the one, that is entirely up to you. If I just bring myself now back to my asset register, so back to the dashboard, our figures are now going to, still in line as they should be. If I look at my asset register, what we'll have now is an asset register that's running from January to December 2019, because I've just put 2018 through. If I wanted to look at 2018's fixed asset register, I just click on this little sort of calendar icon, and I can look at last year's there. So once you've been using it for a few years, automatically, you'll have that history that's built in. If you want to download your asset register into Excel, maybe to attach it to your workings, if you're working as the bookkeeper and you want to pass it to the accountant, then you can export it into Excel quite easily from the little drop down there. And that sort of brings me to the end of the sort of basics. What I'll do is I'll just take us through some other options, and then if Emily gets any questions, then I'll happily answer them. Just take a look at some of the other settings. So if I come into my settings, what I have is I can go back and change those depreciation rules if I wish. If I need to change any asset groups, change it the way that they're mapped to QuickBooks, I can make some edits within there. If I look at my company settings, so these are my current company settings. So most of the information that I put through when I set up from scratch, the automated features, so automatically put my journals through. So that means that, you know, month by month, as soon as it gets to the end of month, overnight, the journals will just happen without you needing to log in and do anything. And the same with your adding of new assets. So if you are coding those asset purchases to the additions categories in QuickBooks, and you choose this option to refresh your transactions. So once a fortnight, QuickBooks or the nettTracker will connect into QuickBooks every couple of weeks just to do a little refresh. And if it's then detected that there's been some new asset purchases, and if you wish, you can add them automatically onto your assets. So at the moment, I didn't put a threshold in there, but I could say, well, only add an asset if it was more than $500. And I can just update my company settings there. If you want to add other users, so if I just come back to my, I'm in there in my settings, I can add further users. Now, there's two options of users. So if you're working as a business or as the accountant, if you want to add a user that only has access to this particular bit company, then you would add them from within here. So you could be the accountant and you'd like to invite your client to actually look at that fixed asset register, then I can add them from within here from this add a user. Whereas if I take myself back into my account, so if I look to where I can view my companies, take myself into my account here. So I go into Ash Beats and so into my actual account. So I've got my subscription, which is active. If I look at view details there, then I've got the different companies, the fixed asset registers that I have, and I have my users. So I'm the only user on this particular account as the admin, you know, I don't see any other users there. If I wanted to add maybe one of my staff members so that they can actually add new asset registers for our clients, then I could add them from within there. Take myself back to my companies. So you can just search for your company from that search option and open it back up. And one other thing that I'll just do, so now that I'm in 2019, if I were to add an asset, so let me just quickly add an asset in here. So I'll put a supplier bill in for 2019. Let's put that to computer equipment additions. So let's say we put some A4, bought quite a bit of A4 paper, but it's only $100, but someone's coded it to computer equipment additions. So I'm going to save and close. It's the supplier. So let me save and close that. So if I come back into nettTracker, what I have is an external book value of 194. Oh, that could be the year end. Well, it could be my dates that's been detected. So let me just have a look there. Oh, I put an extra bill in there. I didn't realize I've created another copy. So I've got another one in there. I didn't change that correctly. Let me just change that. So that must have just changed in QuickBooks while I was doing it very quickly. Computer additions. So let me just save and close that without it changing the, there we go. So I was only expecting that to be £100 difference. Yeah, that's better. So I've got my $100 bill that I entered. So I'm now $100 different. So if I view the transactions, so let's say that, I just need to refresh here. Okay, I know what's happened on this one. So let me just ignore that. Come back into my QuickBooks file and just do a delete on that one. Just add that new bill. Because I'm just going through things a little bit quickly and I'm not sort of giving the browsers enough chance to sort of fully update. So let me just A4 paper this one again and save. A little refresh there. There we go. So I've got $100. I've coded it to the wrong account as well, but never mind. I'll just come back to my dashboard. So I've got $100 difference. What I wanted to do is just show you if I process these assets. So I'm going to basically put depreciation through for the new cost. So let me refresh here. I think because it's not enough money. Let me view all of my assets. Oh, I'm being a bit daft. So too much haste in the speed. I've not actually added the asset. Oh dear, I started to panic and I thought something wasn't quite working. So if I add the asset, it would actually help. So I'm going to just choose to add the asset, and I could actually run it through 2-year straight line. So let me just click OK on that. So it's not in the right category, and it's not actually in the right value. So I don't really want it. So I'll just come to my dashboard. All of my assets are on. I'm just going to process the depreciation to the end of the year. So let me just get this on. Process that depreciation. So we can see there, just behind, I've got A4 paper showing $4.79 coming through a month. So if I then come back into QuickBooks and I realize, into nettTracker, and I realize that I've got these assets that have been put on by mistake and the depreciation has run through, creating the depreciation journals, then, well, I don't want those at all. So if I am in the asset register, so come back to the dashboard and just look at all of my assets, then all I actually need to do here is if I just delete that asset and say yes to delete it, it will automatically reverse every single one of those journals. And then all I'd need to do now is just go back into QuickBooks and code it to the correct place. Back to the dashboard. I've got a difference of $100 because the asset's not been put on. I've just got that correction to go made back in QuickBooks. Okay, Emily, have we had any questions, Emily, that you might want me to answer before I sort of start wrapping it up?
We haven't got any in the chat or the Q&A yet. So guys, if you do have questions, go ahead and put them in, but none so far, Ash.
Okay, so hopefully I'm covering everything, but if not, then we can always think about it and you'll be able to email me at any time. So let me just cover over a couple of other things. I'll just come back to my slides now, sort of finishing off. So just in brief summary, the fixed asset purchases, based on the data that's entered into QuickBooks or Xero, can be quickly added to your fixed asset register, and you can fully automate that process. The depreciation is calculated, journals posted into QuickBooks or Xero. Again, you can fully automate it. So once you've set up, you don't really need to log back into QuickBooks. You can, and it's a nettTracker. You can really sort of set it up and then forget about it until you need to do an annual review. If you put something in by mistake, you can easily delete it, just as I have done there, and it will reverse any of the depreciation that you got put through. And if you want to dispose of an asset, mark it as disposed, all of those journals that you need for those disposal entries will get made there. Just a bit on the standard pricing. So from within our you'll find this on our website. So there's different levels of subscription. So if you just want the one company, so if you're just a one business and you want it, so our lowest sort of is sort of £10 a month for the one. If you're an accountant, bookkeeper, and you want to handle your fixed assets for multiple businesses, then the more that the more clients that you want to automate, basically, the much cheaper it gets. So you can see, if you're using the enterprise level, then that's 50 companies for £30 a month. So it gets a much cheaper. So I've got some so you can see sort of the equivalents roughly in US and Canadian and Australian dollars. We don't have US or Canadian pricing in place at the moment, but what we've done for a few businesses recently is that if they wanted to, they can subscribe annually, and you can it works out of 11 months, or sorry, 12 months for the price of 11. So you sort of get a bit of an additional discount if you were signing up to use it on an annual basis. Now, all accountants get a free account to use for their practice. So whether you want to use it for your practice or you've got a spare QuickBooks test company that you sometimes use, then you simply can just contact us and say that you're an accounting firm, or sort of make sure that you are. And you can use that for an unlimited amount of time. So there's a free account to just sort of get in touch with us, really, and we'll put that in place. So our website, www.netttracker.com, which has got all of the information about our pricing. In fact, a couple of other things that I will just mention before, again, just before we do wrap up. Within our website, there is there's help guides, help videos. I do actually go onto the website, in fact. So within our website, we've got help and support. So if I do go to help and support, there are how-to guides. So there's a PDF guide available, which you can download. And within that PDF guide, there are actually links to video guides within there as well. So on this page, you can see that connecting to QuickBooks, dashboard and menus, adding your asset groups, accounting, mappings, importing the assets. So all of those things that I went through, there are video guides that take you through all of these steps, and links of those are in the PDF guide. If you're really stuck when you're using nettTracker, then you can always ask us for help. So within the help option, you can go to help with this page. So if I was to click help with this page, it gives me some little information about the page that I'm on, and there's also a little video guide linked with that as well. If I wanted more help, I can go to help and support, where you can raise a support ticket, and we try to be as responsive as we possibly can. We are working in different time zones, so just bear with us. Sometimes if you send so it's nearly just 5 to 5 here in the UK. So if you send a request to a sort of 5 p.m. US time, we probably won't get to that until the next day. So you can raise a support ticket with what you need a little bit of help with, and we'll get back as soon as we can. And we've also got some additional sort of little help options. You know, why isn't something happening? So based upon, you know, other questions we've had, I've put some additional little guides in there as well. Okay, so that sort of brings me to the end of this session, Emily. So I'd just like to say sort of thank you very much for having me on. I don't think there's been many questions. Oh, there was a special offer actually I was going to mention. If you do sign up for the premium subscription, if you raise a support ticket, just type it in the Insightful Accountant offer. I will automatically upgrade you to the professional at the same cost. Oh yeah, thanks Emily. There was one extra little poll. So if you start to that one, that would be great. Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, so thank you very much for everyone that's voted on that one. So a bit of a mixture. So you've got just one there that's just working for their own sort of company, and a few with a few more. So yeah, thank you. That's excellent. Thanks for answering those. So yeah, if you do sign up, we'll automatically upgrade you. Again, any questions, if you just go onto our website, you can contact us through the help options that are within there.
Great. Thank you so much, Ash. It was a great presentation today. We had a comment in the chat that said great presentation, so thank you for that. I will get the webinar recording and handout here to everyone shortly. If you have any questions, I will also attach Ash's contact information for follow-up if anybody wants to contact him. And otherwise, I hope to see you all at the next Insightful Accountant webinar.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Have a great week. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.